Welcome to the When Wit Happens podcast. This is a podcast that helps you find ways to celebrate and live your best life even when stuff happens. Now, here's your host, Whit West.
Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. And today, what I'm going to be talking about is imposter syndrome. If you don't know what imposter syndrome, it can be defined as a collection of feelings of inadequacy that persist even in the face of information that indicates that the opposite is true. It is experienced internally as chronic self-doubt and feelings of intellectual fraudulence. So if you want to hear more about this subject, stay tuned. So I first found out about imposter syndrome, I would say like 4 or so years ago. And it was during a time when, I had been blogging for several years, mostly for fun. And I kind of was transitioning into doing more of the business side of blogging, as well as a lot of transitions were going on in my life. It was around the time that I had gotten sick shortly after. And so there was a lot of questioning going on in my life that hadn't gone on before. And sometimes when those things happen, you kind of start to doubt yourself, doubt how you've come this far, and doubt why you've come this far, and if it's pure luck or if it's talent. Sometimes while you're interacting with other successful people and people that you believe have it all or have it all figured out, you'll usually find that they're not always sure of themselves as you are about them. You look and you're like, wow, you've accomplished so much, and they still might not be quite sure how. This is the definition of imposter syndrome. There are a lot of times when we tend to have self-doubt and we think we're one mistake away from everything just crumbling. It could be at work, it can be at school, it can be our business, at home. But you really have to realize that you are not a fraud and you're also not perfect. And those things can coexist and you still be okay. Even though I know about imposter syndrome now, I still struggle with it. And a lot of times it's when you're entering new spaces or trying to do different things that you think that sometimes maybe I'm not good enough, or maybe I don't know what I'm trying to do. But as Myleik Till, the founder of Curlbox, said recently, she was saying, well, maybe you aren't qualified, but you're here. You're called to do the work. So do the work because there's a reason you're here. So doing the work will qualify you. So sometimes you end up in a space where you are there to do the work and you may not be qualified yet, but you're still doing it. So just do it. And in thinking about imposter syndrome, and as I try to go through it sometimes, I've kind of come up with 3 ways to help myself and other people overcome the imposter syndrome. One of the ways is letting go of perfect. Trying to be perfect or seem perfect is the quickest way to succumb to imposter syndrome because you've set up an expectation for yourself that you can never, ever live up to. And then will possibly use that failure to feed your imposter syndrome. It's just a never-ending cycle. You got to be realistic and incremental with your goals for yourself so that you can actually achieve them. It's not saying that you can't reach for the stars, but you have to plan to do so adequately. When you sometimes want to leap from step 1 to step 10, that's insurmountable. When you step to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, when you get to 9, that step to 10 is going to be a lot easier than the leap from 1 to 10. So make sure you're doing your goals properly and not trying to be perfect doing them. Another way is you want to surround yourself with like-minded people. The people with whom you choose to be around say a lot. Losers essentially come loaded up with excuses to why you need to settle for where you are now or why you can't be greater. While your family and your friends surely love you, they may not quite get what you're trying to do. When they don't get something, or they see you struggling even with something, they may begin to express concern or doubt. And not to say that that concern or doubt isn't coming from a loving place, but that concern and doubt can feed your imposter syndrome. Having people around you who are doing similar things and who understand the struggle and can see some of your blind spots is definitely important when you're trying to overcome this. And last but not least, work your butt off. There are tons of geniuses in this world, but they won't do the work. It doesn't matter how smart you are or how qualified you are. If you're not doing that work, whatever your qualification is does not matter because it's not in action. As long as you do the work, you'll be learning and you'll be getting better at what you're doing. If you have an idea for something, just do it. You cannot wait until it's perfect because there is no such thing as perfect. While you're trying to perfect at step 1, everybody else is learning on step 2 and 3 and 4 and are almost at 10. And while it feels like they've gone from 1 to 10, they've been taking those steps that you've been afraid to take while you've been seeking perfection. All of these things really feed in to feeling like you are not enough. So if you use these tips to get over imposter syndrome, before you know it, it'll become easier to believe that you truly do belong where you are and you deserve all the successes that have come to you or that will be coming to you. You have to believe in the hard work, your dream, your dedication. Soon you're going to be whatever you want to be. You're going to rock star for yourself. And nobody's going to be able to shake that because you've already overcome doubting yourself. You know that you've done the work to be where you are. And that is the most important part. And if I'm being completely honest, I was recently, this week, even today, going through a bout of imposter syndrome. Trying to figure out if, what I'm planning to do and what am I doing, if it's really what needs to be happening. And something happened today where I was talking to someone, and instead of just kind of sitting there, I did the work and I continued to do what I knew I was able to do, and it was transformative. And it made me get back that confidence that I was on the right track. Because I took that step, I knew that everything I did wasn't going to be perfect, but doing that led me to open myself up to way more opportunities that'll help me get to the end point that I'm looking to get through. Imposter syndrome is not a bad thing if you are going to do the work to overcome it. It just lets you know that you have that nervous energy about what's coming forward. If you get stuck in it, that's when it becomes bad. So what I want you to remember is just always do the work and give up perfection.
Thank you for listening to When Wit Happens. You can find Wit living her best life at withhappens6.com and at withhappens6 on social media. Subscribe and follow for updates. Until next time, keep living your best life.